The liar's mask slips and their hidden secret comes into the light, exposing their immaturity and manipulation. For a long time, they thought they were clever enough to keep up the facade, playing different roles depending on who was watching, switching stories whenever it was convenient, and covering their tracks with lies that seemed convincing on the surface. They believed that their charm, their excuses, and their ability to twist words would be enough to keep people from questioning them. But chosen ones are not easily deceived because your spirit is guided to see beyond appearances. What was once hidden in shadows begins to feel heavy in the atmosphere, and the truth always pushes its way out at the appointed time. When a person builds their life on deception, eventually cracks start to show. They slip up in their stories, they contradict themselves, they try hard to keep control, and little by little, the image they created begins to crumble. This is when the immaturity at their core is revealed, because instead of owning up to their actions, they try to deflect blame, play the victim, or create distractions to keep people's eyes away from the real issue. When the secret starts surfacing, it is not by coincidence, but by divine timing. The chosen ones have a heightened awareness, and even subtle inconsistencies feel loud and obvious in your spirit. You notice the small details others ignore, and you sense when someone's words carry emptiness behind them. This is why their mask begins to slip more quickly in front of you than with anyone else. They cannot maintain the act in your presence, because your energy exposes their falseness without you even having to try. The pressure of holding up a false identity becomes unbearable for them, and their immaturity is seen in how they scramble to fix the image instead of fixing the truth. They might lash out, become defensive, or try to smear your name in hopes of diverting attention, but all these actions only confirm what is already clear. The secret has broken through. Manipulation thrives in darkness, where lies can go unchecked. But once light shines on it, the manipulator loses power. This is the season where their tricks no longer work the way they used to. People start questioning them, their stories don't line up, and their attempts to gain sympathy backfire. Their immaturity shows in the way they panic, because instead of accepting responsibility, they keep digging deeper into deception, hoping to cover one lie with another. But lies can never build a stable foundation, and what they constructed is collapsing before their eyes. The chosen ones are not moved by their tears or their begging, because discernment reveals the truth beyond emotions. This unveiling exposes not just their secret, but also their inability to stand as a mature, accountable individual. Desperation grows as they beg people not to reveal the truth, proving the depth of their fear and guilt. When someone has lived in deception for so long, the thought of exposure shakes them to their core. They know that once the truth comes out, their carefully built image will shatter, and people will see them for who they really are. The desperation in their voice, the pleading in their eyes, and the sudden shift in their behavior show that they are terrified of losing control. They try to appeal to emotions, hoping guilt or sympathy will silence others, but deep down, their begging is a confession in itself. If what they were hiding wasn't true, they would not fear exposure. If the secret was not real, they wouldn't be panicking at the thought of others speaking about it. Their very desperation reveals the weight of the guilt they carry. This behavior also shows how immature they are because instead of facing the truth, they try to manipulate people into silence. They may offer favors, make promises, or even resort to flattery, anything to convince others not to speak. But chosen ones are not moved by empty gestures, and no bribe or sweet word can erase the truth. The guilt sits heavily on them, pushing them to act out of fear rather than strength. They may even start creating stories about why others should stay quiet, portraying themselves as victims who would be ruined if anyone dared to expose them. This manipulation is not born out of love or concern, but out of selfishness and The desperate need to maintain the false identity they built as the begging continues. It becomes clear that they are not trying to protect relationships or protect others from hurt. They are only trying to protect themselves. They fear judgment, rejection, and the consequences of being seen for who they truly are. They may beg one person in private, then run to another with a different story, hoping that if they scatter enough confusion, the truth will get buried. Yet every attempt to silence others only exposes how fragile their lies are. A confident person who stands in truth does not need to beg anyone to stay quiet, because truth can stand on its own. Lies, however, require constant maintenance, and when the weight becomes unbearable, desperation leaks out in every word and action. The chosen ones recognize this desperation for what it is, a sign of guilt. You see through their tears, their pleas, and their dramatic attempts to paint themselves as misunderstood. You understand that begging is not a request for mercy, but an attempt to keep the truth from shining. Their fear of exposure becomes their undoing, because the more they try to control what others say, the more attention they draw to the very secret they want to hide. In the end, their actions reveal more than they conceal, and their guilt becomes undeniable. Chosen ones discern the deception clearly, standing firm in truth while false illusions collapse. When others may be blinded by charm, sweet words, or carefully constructed lies, you are able to see beyond the surface. It is not just intuition, but a spiritual gift that allows you to sense the energy behind words and actions. You notice the subtle contradictions, the inconsistencies in behavior, the way someone's spirit does not align with the image they project. While many people are quick to accept what they see at face value, chosen ones are given the sight to recognize what lies beneath. This gift does not come without a cost, because often it separates you from the crowd. Where others are deceived, you remain alert, and when others fall for illusions, you quietly recognize the truth. When the liar's world begins to crumble, chosen ones do not get swept up in the confusion. You remain grounded in clarity, seeing that what is breaking apart was never stable to begin with. The false identity they tried so hard to protect cannot survive in the light, and you know that no matter how much they beg or manipulate, the truth has a way of surfacing. Standing firm in truth means refusing to be swayed by emotional games or dramatic performances. You can recognize when guilt hides behind tears, when desperation hides behind flattery, and when fear hides behind anger. Others may get entangled in the manipulator's tactics, but chosen ones stay rooted, unmoved by illusions. This strength frustrates the liar, because they cannot understand why their usual methods no longer work on you. Your ability to see deception so clearly often makes you a target. The liar may attempt to smear your name, twist your words, or paint you as the problem, because exposing you becomes their last chance to protect themselves. Yet even these attacks fall apart, because truth always leaves a stronger imprint than lies. The more they try to cover their tracks, the more obvious the cracks become. Chosen ones understand that deception is fragile. It requires constant maintenance, constant performance, constant fear of being caught. Truth, on the other hand, stands steady without effort. By holding firm to what you know, you create a contrast that others eventually notice as well. Where the liar's story keeps changing, your discernment stays consistent, and this consistency exposes the deception more powerfully than any confrontation. As the illusions collapse, others begin to wake up and see what you have seen all along. At first, they may have doubted you or thought you were being too cautious, but eventually the evidence becomes undeniable. The liar's desperation, their contradictions, their fear of exposure, all of it proves what you discern from the beginning. Chosen ones are not only protected from falling into deception, but also positioned as reminders that truth cannot be hidden forever. Standing firm in truth is not always easy, but it reveals the strength of your spirit. Where others panic at the chaos, you remain calm, knowing that the fall of illusions is always the rise of clarity. Chosen ones, what this moment shows us is that truth cannot be buried forever. No matter how many lies are told, no matter how carefully someone tries to protect their false image, what is hidden in the dark will always come to light. The immature liar believe they can manipulate, control, and deceive without consequence, but the unraveling of their mask proves otherwise. Their desperation, their fear, their constant begging for silence has revealed more than the secret itself. It has exposed the weakness of a soul that never learned to walk in truth. But you, chosen ones, are living proof that discernment is powerful. You are reminders that light exposes darkness, that clarity cuts through confusion, and that those who walk in truth will always outlast those who cling to lies. This moment is not about gloating over someone's downfall, but about recognizing the protection and wisdom you carry. You were never meant to be fooled, never meant to be blinded, never meant to be trapped in the web of deception. You were chosen to see, to know, and to stand firm, even when others fall into illusions. So continue to walk in your gift. Stay rooted in your truth.